This is a really cool kind of moment for me because all the other guests, although super talented, I didn't really know them prior, and I just was kind of trying to find talented people to come on. But been a big fan of yours for a while.
Yes,
and
mate.
Yeah, it's I was listening through your catalog, and there's so many songs that I know and have listened to, and certain moments in life, and it's all kind of come
I
full
love
circle.
that, dude.
Yeah,
That's so nice.
yeah, man. It's,
I love that. Yeah.
super cool. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's recording. Cool. Nice.
We're going. Love it. Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, mate.
Right, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure, mate.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have you on, and maybe I'll put that clip in the beginning as a cold open. But I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, pretty much since I moved to London in the sort of Spotify discovery phase of my life.
Yes, I love that. It's a good phase of the life.
Yeah. And kind of stumbling upon Miles Apart, which moving from Florida to London. I sort of connected with it, and also going through a breakup and what have you.
All of those things combining into one song. Yeah, I love that.
So anyway, super excited. Tell me a little bit about your kind of upbringing, where you're from, and what that was like.
Yeah. So I'm from just outside of London.
Yeah.
So a little town called Great Missenden, which no one knows, but it is.
Yeah.
It has a fun fact about it, in which it's the place where Roald Dahl lived, the English author who did BFG and the Twits and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. There you go, that one. And so it's like this really quaint little village. Nothing happening there, like honestly nothing. But it's really, really close to London. It's just the next stop out on the train past Amersham, which is technically Zone 9.
Okay, yeah.
There's a Zone 9 of London, if you can believe it. So,
I lived in Edgware, which I think is right on the...
Yes, Met Line. Maybe.
Northern.
There you go.
Yep.
So it's like further up northwest.
Yeah.
So it's not technically London, but it's close enough. So grew up there, countryside, really lovely, and kind of... I don't really know where I got into music, if I'm being honest, but music's kind of been in the family a lot.
Okay.
When I was younger, parents playing a lot of music. I've got a big family. There's 5 of us siblings. So my older sisters used to play a lot of music, a lot of Mariah Carey, a lot of Queen, a lot of crazy, just different genres going around. And I used to just listen to a lot of music through them. And then I think I just kind of naturally got into making music when I was a little bit older, in secondary school, year 9. So I was probably about 14 years old.
Okay.
And then since then I've kind of been writing music, and it's gotten like less bad, I think. It starts out awful, but yeah, that kind of upbringing of just like really no one else in the family does music. So it wasn't this sort of obvious thing. I think I just kind of fell in love with it and then just went with it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
No musicians in the family then?
Musicians in the family, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But no one doing it professionally.
Right. Okay.
My parents, amazing musicians, and the rest of my family. My brother plays drums. My younger sister sings. My oldest sister sings in a choir, plays piano as well. My other sister plays piano and sings really well. So everyone's got something going that is musical. It's just I happen to be the one that went full on with it. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, that must feel good as well to, I guess they're being musicians themselves. They're able to kind of support you and lift you up in that way versus like, what are you doing?
100%.
Unless maybe that's the case.
Yeah, no. It's not actually. It's exactly that. I mean, I'm very lucky. I know a lot of people that had upbringings and were around family members that were like against anything musical or creative. I think that's such a common thing. And I was the complete opposite. When I was growing up, my parents were always encouraging and wanting me to do whatever I was wanting to do that was making me happy, and that became music. And actually I went on at uni to study acting, which was a little detour from music and then back into music, but still the whole sort of performing thing. And I've never been forced by anyone in my family into something that's a little bit more sort of what you would expect from like get a job, knuckle down. And so I was really lucky in that aspect. Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Acting, was that just something to do for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, what's the second least reliable source of income? Let's do that.
Yeah.
But no, it was, I wanted to go to university. I didn't want to do music because I was doing music at the time just before, and I was a little bit scared of like having the fun sucked out of it for me. Do you know what I mean? Like when you study too hard on something, I'm this way, but I know other people are and a lot of people aren't. But when I study too hard on something, I can get bored of it quite quickly. And I didn't want that to happen with music. I wanted to do it forever. So I kind of thought, I want to go to university. I want to do something creative. So I like acting and I like kind of that side of performing as well. So I did that as well. I've never used it since. It was a really valuable sort of experience.
No short films?
No short. I mean, I've done a little bit of acting, like music videos and stuff, but no. I'm not getting any Oscars, mate. They're not rolling in just yet.
We'll go for Grammys.
Grammys first. Yeah.
Nice. And so what kind of led you to pursue music then?
I think it was like a slow realization that I could do it. And actually when I first started out in school, it was doing covers and just messing around on guitar. And I was obsessed with The Fray. I was obsessed with Gavin DeGraw, the whole Chariot album and the stripped version of the album. I was obsessed with it. So I kind of was just starting out trying to impersonate that. And then I started uploading to YouTube. And this was at the time when YouTube was like more of a, I don't know, and I'm saying this as someone that hasn't tried uploading and like coming up through YouTube now, but at the time of like 2009, 2010, it was very much an easier sort of way in because there wasn't...
The Biebs?
The Biebs, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one person who was killing it. Yeah. So it was that thing of like, I'm just going to upload. And also Instagram wasn't a huge thing. We were nowhere near TikTok at this point. So it was like, I'm just going to start uploading covers and see what happens just for myself. And then I kind of found a little bit of an audience and a following there and just kept doing it. And I think grew naturally through that. And then I started writing my own music and uploading my own songs on there. And they went down well on there. And so it kind of just naturally became a thing of like, okay, I'm just going to start releasing music then. And here we are. So, yeah.
Do you remember how you felt when you first started receiving comments on, from random people on YouTube saying, this is great? Or
Yeah. It was really weird. I think, to be fair, part of me still finds it crazy, but it was like, I remember the first sort of year of doing it, there was not really, it was kind of like people that knew me knew about the channel, and then every now and then there'll be like a little trickle of like a comment from someone that has just found me randomly. And I remember there was one video I put up, I can't remember which one it was. It was I did a cover of a Two Door Cinema Club song.
Okay, yeah.
Like a really early one. It was like really indie pop, right? And I like stripped it down. And also it was like, I have not watched it in years. It was probably terrible, right? But I remember that one was the first to pass like 10,000 views. And I was like, what's going on? Like I'm used to just like 10 or like 100.
Yeah.
And then the comments on that were so nice, and I'm very lucky in that I didn't have too many like horrible comments. So it was mainly nice stuff. Yeah.
And I guess that was like before all the trolling and
exactly.
cool to be mean.
Yeah. And I wasn't so big that I had all of the trolling side of it. Like I think if I blew up massively on YouTube, and at that age, I just wouldn't have been able to deal with it. Because like you're like 15 years old, just like, oh, this is fun.
Battered,
and someone's just like absolutely shouting you down.
Which is so crazy.
I know,
anyway,
mental, right? Yeah.
I mean, because those comments hold a lot more weight, at least if I ever receive them, they do for me, hold a lot more weight than your mom or dad or family,
Yes.
friends saying
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
so good."
Yeah.
So that feeling is so good, getting it just from random people that somehow stumble upon your stuff, and I guess that maybe is what kind of kept you going.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, I think I would have kept going, but I don't think I would have been as inspired to keep going if it wasn't for that. Because you're right, it's a different thing than when you have it from relatives or friends, because in the nicest way possible, like, aside from your really close friends, most like other friends or relatives probably won't tell you exactly what they think. So if you're doing awful stuff, then they're probably still going to tell you you're doing all right. Whereas strangers just won't. Do you know what I mean? Strangers are brutal. So if you're getting good stuff from strangers, it's like, okay, this could be a thing. So yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I had a guest on here named Naya, and he mentioned on the podcast.
I always say that your friends aren't your audience, right?
Yeah.
You can't count your friends to, you can't hold them hold them to it as well. You can't be like, oh, we're not friends because you didn't come to my show. So no, you're not my audience. Like,
that stuck with me so much, and maybe something I knew but just never really kind of processed. And it's so true. But I guess you needed that feedback to understand if you were good or not.
For sure. You need a little bit of it, and that's it. Also helps when it comes to, I think one of the most important things about being a musician at any point is being able to take constructive criticism and having a thick enough skin, but also, you know, being able to stand your ground. And I think a lot of that comes from random people and fans and people you don't know telling you things, because then you take it better than, you know, if it is a close friend for what the reasons we said. But I agree with that as well. I think, you know, your close friends and relatives are not the ones that should really matter too much at a certain point anyway. When you're starting out, it can help and it's nice. It feels good. You want a little bit of that. But I think, you know, once you've been doing it for years, it doesn't become as important, for sure.
How did you make that transfer from covers into original songs?
Yeah, good question. I honestly can't quite specifically remember. I don't think there was like a specific, I'm gonna shift to this. I think it was just a natural thing of, I was doing so many covers. I was doing that specifically on YouTube. And the covers for me were a way of figuring out how I wanted to sing. I mean, I was going through puberty. My voice was changing so much. Do you know what I mean? Like, I figured out I could do falsetto. I remember specifically like early covers, I couldn't do bar chords. And I was just like, well, I'll never be able to do that. And just like a year later I could. And so that was a learning curve process for me. And I think naturally in that process became a part of like, oh, I'm really loving these songs I'm doing. I'm doing enough songs like in my bedroom and recording them. I'm listening to so much music. Like, what would it be like if I just started trying to write? And I've always been creative, and I've loved the creative side of things with, like, you know, English and in school and things. So I think it was just natural. And look, the first songs I was writing were absolutely terrible, like so bad. Awful. But I think that's part of it. Once you start doing it, you learn how to make it better. So yeah, I don't really remember a specific moment. I just remember just getting into it and then just uploading those covers. And then, the early original songs were not good and didn't really pick up as much as the covers. So it was alongside it. And then eventually it just naturally became less covers and more originals. So
I've seen that a lot on, like, kind of through the years on YouTube, a lot of cover artists. And it's very hard to transition into original music because people just want the covers from you.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, I know a lot of people that have had that difficulty, and a lot of people that have navigated that shift really well. And actually for me, I think it was quite easy because it happened over a long time. And also I wasn't this massive artist on YouTube beforehand. I had the right level of following to let me kind of shift into whatever. So it wasn't like I had to kind of shake this persona as a YouTuber and then get into this. It was like, okay, this is doing this and it's working. I'm going to bring this up alongside it. And then that just naturally took over. So yeah, but it can be a difficult landscape for sure.
Do you remember the feeling when you first released an original song?
Yeah, I do. And I remember, I can't remember what it's called. I think it was.
Is it the one on streaming services now, or that's the later?
I think the very first one, if everything was done correctly, shouldn't exist anymore. There's a really, really old one. It was like the first one I did like a music video for. And I remember it was like, I shot the music video with like a really shitty little camera. And like, that one was called Oh Darling. And that one, I think.
It's not.
It's not on there?
No.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
There was one before that. Oh, what is it called? Give Me Your Hand. That was the first ever one. And I remember getting my...
I think that's on there.
Is it?
I think so.
Damn. I'm going to have to chase someone down.
It's good.
The one thing I love keeping up really old stuff, if it is on there, because it's just like... I like to be able to, like, for example, on Spotify... Loads of my early like EPs I think sound terrible, right? But I love having it there because the progression's there. So
100%.
It's nice to see that.
We'll get into it, but
yeah,
it was so because you've been releasing music since 2013.
Yes, yeah.
It was so cool to see the progression of your sounds, your voice, lyrics, songwriting, everything. So that was really interesting. And I can imagine for you, I quite like going back into my songs and listening to see how bad they are, or just to see like where I've come, or even drawing inspiration from them. Be like, oh, that was quite good.
Yeah.
Why did I stop doing that? Whatever. So yeah, that must be pretty cool for you to have that anyway.
I'm exactly the same, mate. I think every like year or so, I'll just get in a little hole for like an hour or so of listening back to the early stuff and being like, and half of it's like, oh, this is okay. Like you were kind of nailing it. And then half of it's like, what have I done? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's nice to have it there. I understand. I know, some artists that don't like to have the early stuff they release there because aesthetically or you want to keep up a certain level of whatever. I completely get that. For the time being, I'm not at all in that mindset, just because I'm the same as you. I love having it there just to exist. You know what I mean?
I think as a fan and as an artist myself, I think it's super cool that you keep it there. So
man. No, it's nice. It's cool to have it there.
Yeah. You packaged something up into an EP. I think it was The Darkest Hour.
Darkest, I think it's just Darkest Hour.
Darkest
I
Hour,
think so. Yeah.
And so dropping that EP, what was that like? That was the first one, wasn't it?
First one, yeah, that was the first one. I think what it was for me, right, is the early EPs were essentially demos that I'd just done in my bedroom.
Yep.
And I was just releasing for the sake of releasing them.
Yeah.
So the early ones were really exciting, and I remember being like, oh my God, like a project and more than one song. And it was at the time of like iTunes being a thing. And then, one of the songs, like seeing whether you could get it to chart on like the singer-songwriter page. And I was really excited. It didn't, of course it didn't. There was nothing there. But I was like super, super excited about that. And I think the first EP was, it was literally just an excuse to be like, I've got these songs. I don't want to keep just putting one song out. It looks like legit professional people put out these things called EPs and albums, but I don't know what an album is, like how to do that. So it literally was just like, I'm going to do this. I had a manager at the time that was basically like a friend of mine in the year above me. So it wasn't at all, he was lovely, like love him to bits, but it wasn't at all like an actual manager position. It was just a guy that liked my music that was in school with me. And I remember he took some photos at his place because we shot like a live session. And so I had like the artwork for it is like the first ever sort of photographs that I had taken for like music stuff. And I remember being like, whoa, so cool. This is so cool. Exactly. It's like, this is a thing. Like, so yeah, I have really fond memories of that first EP, but also like, I'm sure you're aware of it as well, but the first thing you ever put out, when you're putting it out, feels like the most momentous thing ever. Yeah. And then when you look back on it, you're like, wow, that was so nice. Like there was no pressure on anything. So yeah, it's a bit of that, but no, I love that. The early stuff was great. Yeah.
Did you get a good like reception from any kind of people from YouTube?
I think so. It was my original stuff didn't quite like pop until a little bit later on. It was around like 2016, 2017 where some of my original stuff started getting picked up on playlists on Spotify. So there was a good few years. I mean, I think my first EP was 2013. So there was a couple years where it didn't really do anything. Like, it wasn't streaming. It wasn't, I think this was kind of just before Spotify became like a big thing, back in the days of like having to be invited to it and stuff. So yeah, I think there was like good comments on YouTube from the fan base that I'd built, but it was not at all touching like anyone outside of that. But like, the covers that I was uploading were still branching out, but yeah, the original stuff in his first EP were very much for me, and like not really branching that far out. So yeah,
but a step forward nonetheless.
Nonetheless. Definitely.
So speaking of progression, because I do want to get into it with you, a lot of your stuff is acoustic heavy, or at least in the early days. And then I think it was on Bright Eyes, perhaps. You had a song called Home.
Yes.
And you heard drums for the first time in your music. Do you remember kind of doing that song and thinking, okay, here we go?
Yeah, that's so funny you'd say that, dude. Yeah, I mean, firstly, one of my best friends from Home is his favorite song of mine, and he's just since when it came out.
That I don't know how you made it. Did you produce it?
Yeah, it was literally garage band, like so bad.
Was it a loop then that
it was literally? I can't remember what was like inspiring me to do it, but I remember thinking like, okay, I'm just gonna try like different sounds.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a garage band loop.
Yeah.
Like, not loop, but like one of the one hits.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like, I don't even think I did much to it. Like, I honestly think it was just like, oh, this is cool. I'm gonna just drag it in, and like, there you go, on the grid. Like,
it sounds crazy. So good because you have the drums kind of super. Or seems like a slow BPM, and then you introduce some sounds, and then there's like I don't know, a trumpet kind of. I don't know what to call. Anyway, it was great. I was like, oh yeah,
it was that, and that is one of the early songs that we talk about when you look back on the early stuff, and you think some of them are like, okay, that's all right, because I still think now like it is a demo still, and like I'd change it, and I would. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've grown a lot since then.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think so, but. At the time, I remember being so excited by it, and definitely listen back. Like, there are parts to that where I was like, oh yeah. And honestly, it's purely just stumbling into stuff. Like, I did not have a clue what I was doing. And it was just GarageBand demoing up things and playing with stuff. And that was still in the sort of, I treat them as like the first 4 EPs of mine that were before I took music seriously.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is just an outlet for me to try stuff. I'm just going to happen to release some and just put them out and stuff. So
what were you doing during that time outside of music?
That was when I was at university.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was doing that, and I was doing a lot of gigging up there. I went to university in Lincoln, which is up north in the UK. Doing a lot of gigging, doing a lot of busking, and I had time on the side to be doing this stuff. So I was still doing the music thing alongside studying how to act. Yeah. But yeah, again, that's kind of why it was, I didn't really have the time to go fully into like, I'm going to do the whole music thing. So it was still like a side thing at that point. Yeah.
When do you think that you found the artist that you wanted to be?
Oh my God.
And maybe that's still
dude,
an ongoing process.
I'll be looking still. Yeah. I think I found it. I think it was honestly like, I think it started to click in 2019, which was a couple years after.
That is so crazy to me, man.
Yeah.
Because like, again, observing from as a fan, I hear your music. I'm like, oh, this guy's got it sorted and everything. And here you are still trying to figure it out. And it's just like, it's so interesting to hear that from.
Yeah. I think I mean, the long answer is I think you're always trying to figure out who you are as an artist. Like, I think part of it's like, I don't want to be cheesy and say like curse of being a creative person, but like, I don't know if you're the same, but like, I'm the right level of perfectionist, but there's definitely still some perfectionism in there. And I think because of that, you're never fully happy in the moment with the thing that you've done. Sometimes I have been, and most of the time I am, but I think I'm always reflective of like who I am as an artist. And I definitely think that is also to do with the fact that I would consider myself definitely still an upcoming artist. Like, I haven't broken through. And I think at a certain level until you have like a hit or like a big sort of thing happen. It's really hard to know that what you're doing is right. Not that there's a right or a wrong.
Sure.
So yeah, I think I definitely am still sort of figuring stuff out and experimenting with different things. But 2019 was the first like year that I started releasing like proper singles that were with like a distributor that I had contact with and I had a manager and I had all of these things. So yeah, it was a long process up to then. And there were definitely songs before then that I definitely felt at the time and do still think to some degree that, oh yeah, that definitely sounds like me. But yeah, I don't think I was fully comfortable in it at that point. So yeah.
You mentioned your manager, Bjorn.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that relationship and how that's kind of helped you, I guess, accelerate, really?
Yeah, man, really, really good. I mean, we started working together in 2016, end of 2016, I guess kind of very beginning of 2017, but it kind of blurs. So a long time. And actually, I think the most beneficial thing that's come out of having a manager like Bjorn is the relationship we have. We're like best friends, like super, super close. We talk all the time. And we kind of have this thing that a lot of people don't have with management. And a lot of people do have, but this thing of being really, really close enough to be able to tell each other what they think 100% with like full honesty. And I think that goes a long way. And you know, he knows me like the back of his hand and I know him like the back of mine. So we have a really, really good working relationship and you know, we've done some really amazing stuff together and it you know, I would not be doing what I'm doing without him 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's, that honesty is tough enough in normal everyday relationships. So having that in a working relationship, I imagine is crucial.
Oh, it's maybe the most important part for sure. Yeah.
That's really cool. So I want to dig into songwriting specifically with other people versus on your own.
Yeah.
Because I know you do a lot of writing sessions and you write with a lot of super talented people. What was that transition like, going from writing on your own to going to a writing session and writing with others?
Yeah, really good question. I remember it being really difficult, not in the sense of like finding it tough to write, but in the sense of adjusting to like sharing ideas. And, I mean, it's that thing, I don't know if you do a lot of co-writing as well, but it's a different thing. And I think I spent so long writing by myself. And I think most people, everyone starts writing by themselves, right? And so I think you come from a place of this really, I don't think maybe introverted's not the right word, but like this really personal space.
And control. Well, I mean, I'll let you speak, but yeah.
No. Yeah. I think that's exactly it. Yeah. It's like you have full control of it. And I think the scary thing when you start out co-writing is that you are trusting other people with it. And look, I still have it sometimes when you're writing with someone else where, you know, you don't know if it's a new writer that you've never worked with or a new producer or artist, you don't know how that session's going to go. And it was actually like one of the first things that Bjorn, when we started working together, one of the first things he said to me as a manager was like, I really want to get you working with other people because I think that's a really valuable muscle to flex. And I'd never done it before we started working. So it was like 2017 that I first started actually working with other people. And look, now I 99% of my writings with other people and I love it. And you find really good relationships and people that bring out the best of you and hopefully you can bring out the best in them in certain scenarios. And I've gotten more into writing for other artists. And yeah, I think it's a big step to go from writing on your own to writing with other people, but it's a really valuable step to take. And I think once you do it and you start getting into it, like anything, you get used to it and you learn how to kind of work different rooms. So yeah.
Did you have to, speaking of honesty, did you have to learn the ability to kind of hold your ground in a session? Because I'm quite a people pleaser, so
Me too, dude. Yeah. I'm the biggest people pleaser. Yeah.
So if I haven't written with many people. There's somebody else I've written with occasionally. First guest Paul, and we have a good kind of creative relationship in that sense. So I haven't really had much experience doing it, but you know, we talked about writing on your own and producing on your own and having that control. Being in that environment, if I was with somebody that I know was better than me or has more experience, let's say, I would feel so inclined to just be a yes man and just be like, even if I didn't think that idea was correct. So is that something that you had to figure out, or did you go into those sessions already kind of being like, I'm going to crush it or whatever?
I wish I went like that, dude. No, I absolutely had to figure it out. And it is still something that is in the back of your mind sometimes, because I am a people pleaser, and you know, it definitely is a detriment sometimes, but the first, like, honestly, oh yeah, the cough.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a Wheezy one. It's like Wheezy in Toy Story. I think the first year or two, and I think this kind of ties into that 2019 being the year that I first fully started feeling comfortable with stuff, is that couple year period of writing with other people. And there were people that I wrote with in the first year or two that I still write with now, that I made amazing connections with. Two friends of mine who have a writing production duo called Kingdoms. I worked with them very early on, and I still work with them now. There are amazing connections there, but the first year or so was fully people pleasing. I mean, there were sessions that were amazing sessions, but songs that I was like, what is this by the end? Because the problem with people pleasing in a creative scenario is that you come out of it like, oh yeah, that was all their ideas, and I don't have any attachment to it. So it is something you have to learn, and the only way to do it is by doing it. Do you know what I mean? And there are still days where I have sessions, not as much, thankfully, but I'll have sessions where I think the next day, like, I really like that, but I wish, like, there's one lyric in the second verse that I wish we'd just gone in harder on, and I wish I wasn't complacent on. And I'm sure every writer and probably other writers in the room, when I feel the same way. So, but it is just part of writing and learning to give up certain parts. And it's the push and pull of writing with another person. So, yeah.
Is there anything in your music which you've maybe compromised on or sort of said yes to, that you now look back and think, if I stood up for myself, or if I did this, it would be a little different? And you don't have to go into detail, obviously, but
maybe. I mean, I think the short answer is yes. There are definitely things in most songs where I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done that differently.
Right.
But it always comes back to me, I think, because what I am very particular about is what I release. And part of the beauty of being independent and having never signed with anyone major is that you retain that ability to decide what you want to release. And so even if in the room and in the writing session, you know, there are parts where I'm like, oh, I wish I'd done that or whatever, usually that just doesn't then make the cut, because there will be a song that I've written that takes the place, because I do have that attachment to. So of the songs I've released, there are definitely parts in most of them that I wish I could tweak. But it always comes back to me. And I think actually, like, at the end of the day, part of learning to write well with other people is also learning that it's your fault if you don't stand up for yourself, and it's your fault if you let things go, and you can't kind of fall back on like, oh, I wish that had been whatever for whatever reason, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, I could have just changed it and I didn't. So there are definitely some, but not many for that reason. I don't think. Yeah,
that makes sense. Your songs are quite intimate, probably pretty personal. What's it like singing some of those lyrics while in a room with other people? And I guess you've established relationships with particular people that you feel you can be vulnerable. But was that weird at first, and is it ever still weird for you?
Do you mean in like writing or like performing it?
Sorry, writing. So co-writing sessions. You're writing super personal stuff, and I'm sure there's stories behind it.
I definitely found it weird at first. And again, this is the thing of like just adjusting into something you have never done before. I definitely found it weird to open up fully, because those are the best songs, right? I mean, you know how it is. Like the ones you attach to most and feel the most personal about are always the ones that are like, you know, you're being your truest self. And I think that is part of the fear when you haven't written a lot with other people that I had starting out, of like, oh my God, this is so daunting. Like, I have to go into a room and just like talk about feelings. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it is therapy. And actually now, like, you know, the last 4 or 5 years of writing with other people, I'm at a place where I'm super comfortable with it and I love it. I even new artists or writers or producers that I work with, I love the ability, because actually, like, if you zone out, all we're doing is just talking about things, right? And I think that's super healthy. And playing with stuff and just
instruments
like exactly. And I think part of it is not taking yourself too seriously. And I think a lot of it is like, look, there are people out there saving lives, literally like doctors saving lives, and we're in a room like trying to figure out what chord goes under which lyric best. Like, it is fundamentally dumb if you zone out. But there's something in it when you're in it where it feels like the most important thing in the world. And I think it's just realizing that if you take a step back, like, it's not this huge like life-ending thing. And I think when I first started out, there was anxiety there of like, okay, I need to talk about these things. But actually you get to the point where A, you work with people that you love and you know who you work well with, and then it becomes naturally easier to open up. And B, you get to a point where you've done it so much that you don't think about it. I think, and sometimes you do, but mostly it's just like a muscle now, and you just don't think, and you just write and come up with things. So yeah, no, good question though.
Yeah. Again, I don't have a lot of experience, but I know that it's something almost necessary to kind of move forward if you want to become an artist, songwriter, whatever. Because there's the sort of scary dark side of it, of being vulnerable and losing control in that. But there's also the thousands of benefits that you can get from it, and things that you can learn. Is there anything that you that has stood out to you? So I guess on this podcast, there has been people that have said things to me that I have thought about countless times afterwards. And I just think about it. I bring it into my sort of day-to-day, bring it into my music, whatever. Is there anything like that you kind of took away from a writing session that you still think about? And it could be as technical as, oh, this plugin works great. Yeah. Or it could be as sort of wide as like, someone said this life-changing thing.
Damn, the pressure, mate.
I know, I'm sorry.
The most profound thing right now.
And if no is the answer, then that's perfectly okay.
No, I'm joking.
I'm also going to do that.
Yeah, get the water in. I mean, firstly, all the time people say stuff in sessions that I'm like, that's the most like insightful thing I've ever thought, and then I'll forget it immediately. But there's one thing that I can't remember who said it to me. It was very early on.
Here we go.
And here we go. Buckle. Who was it? I can't remember who it was. It must have been within the first couple years of me writing with other people and being in rooms. And it's something that comes up now in every other session. And everyone's like, yeah, it's that. And someone said to me, they were like, oh, what was it? Paraphrasing, but it was like, if like no matter what anyone says in this industry, no one has a fucking clue what they're doing. Yeah. And I was like, okay,
I think that's life.
That's life.
I genuinely think that's life.
I couldn't agree more. I think growing up and becoming like a functioning adult is learning that like really, and like people do to some extent, and I'm not trying to say that like people at NASA don't know what they're doing. Of course they do. They're literally trained.
And you hope your doctors and everything.
Do you know what I mean? Like there are some people that should know what they're doing. Yeah. But when it comes to, I think specifically creative things, nobody knows. And no matter how, like for example, if anyone knew exactly what they were doing and how something worked, like everyone would have a hit. Yeah. Because you'd know like, oh, that's how that happened. Let's do it. Like it's so fluid.
Maybe Max Martin.
Look, definitely. Like if there's one person, it's Max Martin. There are some people that, but even then, right? It's like, and this is what the person was kind of describing it as, is that like even Max Martin, right? Like writes bad songs a lot of the time. He has.
Have you heard him?
No, I haven't. Like, and I can't prove that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it has to be a thing.
Yeah, of course.
But like, so it's like, he just has such a good hit rate. But like, there are definitely songs that he's put out that he'll think aren't great, or that other people will. And it's that thing of when it's a creative industry and specifically songwriting, it's like there are no real true ways to do anything with producing plugins. Like, I think it's I love the song, but the new Sabrina Carpenter song, that Please Please Please.
Yeah.
No, Espresso.
Yeah.
That was literally 3 splice.
I saw the
Did you see it?
breakdown. Yeah.
I saw it on TikTok and I was
Yeah.
like, "There's no way,"
Yeah.
and it is.
It's just it's just a splice loop.
Literally dragged in, and
Yeah.
and they've like obviously added like bass and like her incredible vocals and the song on top of it.
Right.
But like the fundamentals of that, and it's like, oh yeah, like it's that, like, and people will tell you like, don't use splice loops.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they did it, and so it's just that thing of like, there's always a flip way, and I think it for me. Constantly reminding myself that like I don't know what I'm doing. No one knows what they're doing. People know, you know, how things work for themselves and how they do things, but it doesn't mean that that's how things happen or work. So yeah, reminding myself of that, it takes a lot of anxiety away quite a lot of the time.
Yeah. I think you do a really good job of that on your social media platform of kind of letting people in, and in the funniest kind of most charming way of like being self-deprecating and everything. But I do think that's important, and I don't want to necessarily go down this rabbit hole because I could talk a long time about it. But in the age of Instagram, social media, whatever, it is kind of put your best out, and you won't let anybody know differently. And so I think going back to nobody knows what they're doing. It's sometimes hard to picture that, like understand it, process it, because when you scroll through your feed, I'm seeing, you know, super incredibly talented people giving me their all on Instagram. So it's a good reminder, I think.
And dude, I agree. And specifically with like Instagram and social media, like every day I'm comparing myself to other people that I'm like, damn, they know what they're doing. But I guarantee they like, and also I have so many friends.
I mean, me to you in a way. It's like if you're doing that, then I'm not that I'm competing against you, but I'm looking at you and be like, oh man, this guy's got to figure it out. What can I do to kind of like
that's it.
Go to that.
That's it. And I think actually every artist at every stage, like I guarantee there'll be something that even Taylor Swift probably thinks at some point like, oh, okay, how do I do this? Maybe not. She's at the top. She's got it covered, man. She's a billionaire. But like I have so many friends that are in music that are killing it, and I'll talk to them and they'll be like, I'm having the worst time, like this problem's happening, like this thing with this label, and I'm just like, what? I would have no clue about that. So I think it's that reminder as well that firstly, and I tell myself this every day, it's like what you see on social media is not necessarily exactly how it is. And then secondly, no one fucking knows what they're doing. and actually it's just the art of making it look like you do. And that's music. That's definitely the music industry, but it's any creative industry, anything in life is like the confidence in making it look like you know what you're doing carries more weight sometimes than actually knowing what you're doing, or it definitely looks the same. So it's just a difficult minefield, isn't it, to navigate.
It's a good mantra to kind of hang up in a studio to kind of look at every now and then to be reminded, and I'm sure it could humble some people as well to see that and hear it. You mentioned you know a lot of people, particularly very talented people, Martin Luke Brown, who is incredibly talented, and then Blair Davies and Victoria Canal, who I saw at that songwriting showcase. Amazing. What's that like to be surrounded? And like obviously you're super talented yourself, but internally, what's that like to be surrounded by so many talented people?
Yeah, amazing. Like it really is. It's like being friends with people that you actually like adore, like musically and like creatively, and it do you know what, like I think there could be some expectation that there's like jealousy or something, or because I think a lot of the time, I mean that's the clickbait I'm trying to get out of you, so I'm jealous of every person I know. But no, I think honestly, truthfully, it inspires me, and I'm working with people and, you know, chatting to them and being just friends with them and at the same time being massive fans of their stuff. And it inspires me to be like, they're just killing it and doing their thing and doing it so well. And it makes me want to do my thing better. And in my opinion, hit the heights that they have, because I think I always compare myself, and I always think that I can be doing something better, and I think that's just part of being creative sometimes. And I think having people around you that are incredible makes you try and do better, and I think it's a healthy thing, and I love it. I love being able to call people like that my friends. So, yeah, it's great. It's great.
Do you speak openly about that with them, about comparing yourself to others? Because like I feel like that's super important to have that
I think
relationship.
And I think every creative person or musician or in any aspect, you know, we all talk about it. I think I don't know anyone really that hasn't at some point had that thing of like, I need to take a break off Instagram, or I need to put this thing down and focus more on not comparing myself to this, because I think that is just like a curse especially with social media. Like, it's something that is always there now, because you're just looking at everything through this like screen that people have curated. And actually, I think, like, without going too deep into it, I think there's a thing now that makes it even worse, in that, like, TikTok, for example, now having this thing of like, you know, the ultra curated Instagram feed is not the thing, and actually it's more about this personable, like, and that makes it worse for me, because I'm like, you're still crafting it to present it. It's just now you're presenting it as if it is this really off the cuff thing, and then it makes you think more like, oh, I'm seeing these people that are killing it, and this looks like their day to day, and I know it's 10 seconds of their day. So it's just this whole
the best
big
10
thing.
seconds.
It's the best 10 seconds every time. And so I just think that's always there. So everyone is talking about comparison, I think. And I think people that aren't, just, how do you do it? Do you know what I mean? Teach me a way. Like, I want to be able to not. So
I'm sure everybody's thinking about it, even if they won't admit it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing, Something, Everything was produced and mixed by you. How important was that for you to release something like that, that you did yourself?
Good question.
I guess full-length album.
Yes.
Because you had the earlier stuff done by you, but at a point where it's like, okay, I'm doing this.
Weirdly, important's a good word, because I didn't, and I still don't necessarily think of it as important for me to have done it, but I think it probably was, because in hindsight, essentially for me, it came down to two things. The first was proving to myself that I could do it, because and I produce a lot of my own stuff now. The last EP I did last year, the new stuff I'm putting out this year, is all self-produced. I, as a producer, don't think I'm a producer, and I think I'll just always feel like that. Like, I don't feel good enough in production terms compared to people I know that are killing it with that. And I think for me, that album was, okay, I think I probably can do this. And a lot of it was knowing my strengths. Like, I can't produce like a full band set. Like, I just can't do it. When there's like 50 tracks going, drums, all of that, like, I don't know what to do. I can produce vocals, and I can produce like smaller, more intimate things and soundscapes. And so I thought, well, if I do a whole album to prove to myself that I can produce an album, I want to make sure it's like a small, intimate thing that isn't this massive project with loads of budget and everything. So it was that. And then the second side of it was budget. And I think every artist in the world at a certain point relates to this, but I wanted to keep releasing music because I'm always writing, but I also didn't have the money to be releasing like paying loads of producers and just making this big thing that my first album before it, the year before, was, and I really loved that. So I didn't have the money to, so I just kind of was forced to keep it really small. And I think that forcing me to only be able to use a certain amount of tools made it so much more beneficial in the long run, and I'm really proud of that. So yeah, I think it was important now that I had done it, because also that kick-started me getting back into producing for myself, because I still work with a lot of producers and write with producers and have a lot of demos with other producers. And I always say, like, for the time being, I'm trying to produce myself just to keep costs low, but also keep myself fulfilled. And then when the time comes and when the budget's there,
Max Martin.
Straight to Max. Do you know what I mean? There's no one else there. So,
nice, dude. Yeah, it's an amazing body of work.
Thank you.
I mean, all your stuff is really, but I mean, that's coming from a
I
fan.
appreciate that, dude. Yeah.
What did you learn by digging back into producing that you didn't know previously?
I'll tell you what, everything I'd produced up until then myself and the early songs and stuff were very much like, I don't know anything about plugins.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about like how to make, like the best way to make a sound. Like when I was first working and demoing up and releasing songs, like I didn't know how to do delay, and I'd record the vocal like 5 seconds, not 5 seconds, like 0.5 second. I'd literally manually like drag it down and as a delay. And so getting back into production and it was slowly getting back into it because I'm always demoing.
Yeah. Do you remember the GarageBand delay where at least for me, I never figured out how to get it to match the BPM of the song.
Yes.
Or I didn't even know what a BPM was at that time.
Yeah.
And you just kind of moved this like little wave thing to try.
Classic, mate.
Yeah.
I'm never going back to that. Those are the dark ages. But having said that, like, yeah, I remember that, and it was amazing. And the other thing I remember from GarageBand days is only having a certain amount of plugins that you can have on a track. It'll be like 5 or I don't know if I haven't been on GarageBand in years, but it used to be like 5. And so I actually loved that because it kind of teaches you to only be able to do what you want in that.
Yeah.
And so that carried forward. But
you should challenge yourself and do a song on GarageBand only and see if
kind of
it,
mad. I think you could probably do it quite well now because I think GarageBand has become like, it's basically Logic, just less.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Producing, going back into it, I think for me now is like, it just has become, there are things in it that, plugins I now know about, and I know how to do more things and get more of the sounds that I was thinking of but didn't know how to do it. Yeah. And that also becomes a result of working with other people in sessions because you can look behind a producer. How did you do that? And then explain it. And then also it was an exercise in keeping things small. And being able to do it. I have my laptop is like a 2017 MacBook. Okay. It's not good. Like literally 2 tracks and it will be like
the
going.
worst.
And I'm like trying to, like, for example, I last year produced for someone else for the first time.
Nice.
A friend of mine called Josephine, who's amazing. And we were recording vocals at mine, and the fan on my laptop was too loud, so I had to sit in my wardrobe while she did the vocal outside to literally. It was amazing. Very funny, but like not what you want to do, right? So yeah, just things like that where it's like figuring out the right way to do things and actually getting back into the basics to then knowing what compression is now without just being like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's this? So yeah.
I mean, honestly, some of those plugins, it really is just like, what's
most
gonna
of them
sound
still
good.
are. I'm like 2.4 ratio, whatever that. Yeah, exactly. So
nice. I'm just gonna geek out for 1 second and we'll wrap up. You mentioned soundscapes. A lot of your songs start with like a beautiful sort of droney sound.
Yes.
Are those spliced, or are you creating those as well? And maybe it's a mix of both.
And
you also don't have to reveal your secret.
Let's do it. I'm revealing right now. Dude, I love that you said that because part of the thing that I worked out quite early on is that I was getting really annoyed by how I couldn't make soundscapes, and I really wanted them. Like I listened to a lot of Bon Iver when I was growing up, and a lot of that side of things where there were these like gorgeous just elements.
Unbelievable. On yours
So
too.
good.
Like it's just like there's something so warm.
Thank you. That's it. Warmth.
Yeah.
And it's like a hug. And I think so when I started out, it was purely, I didn't know what splice was until like 4 years ago. So when I started out, it was just electric guitar, like straight in DI, and then just slap loads of reverb and delays on it, like multiples. So like usually it would be like and at this point it was GarageBand, so stock plugins, like a really long reverb, a really long delay, like another long reverb, a shorter delay, and then an EQ so it doesn't get like really blown out. And that was it, just like a few of those different notes that were all in the right key, just like sort of panned to different directions. And then as I've gotten more sort of competent as a producer, it's still that, and then bringing in splice stuff. And what I like to do is I don't really like to find like an ambient thing on Splice and then just like put the whole thing in, even though you could do that and it would sound great. But I'll try and find like a sound that feels nice, it's quite simple, and then just cut up like half a second or a second of it and then loop that, and then on that add loads of reverb and delay so it becomes something else. And it's just about experimenting, mate. Like every single time I'm like, this sounds terrible, and then I add like one thing and I'm like, that's the best thing ever.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's the beauty of producing, is like it's like a puzzle sometimes.
Exactly.
And you find the piece.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just gonna ask one last question, which is there anything that you're learning now or you still want to learn?
Yeah, everything.
Of course,
like everything.
And again, this could be as big as I want to, I don't know, learn how to do something.
Yeah, I really want to learn how to play piano.
Okay, cool.
I can't play piano. I play piano, actually, all of that Nothing Something Everything album and all the stuff since, I play piano on it.
Nice.
But it's like MIDI, I can rearrange it.
Yeah.
I can play it really badly, and then, like, but I really, really want to like learn how to play so that I can play it live. And that's one thing, I'm just too lazy. I tried doing it in lockdown for like a week over like pandemic time, and then I was like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I have such a short attention span. So I really want to do that. And I think I really just want to learn more about production stuff, because I've gotten to a really, I think, good point for myself of like knowing what I'm doing, but I'm always like in a session with people, like friends of mine, artists, new writers, new producers, where I'm like, whoa, how did you do that? And I think that's always going to be the case. So production stuff and piano, I think that's what I want to nail.
Cool.
That's what I want to get done.
Nice, man. Do it. Nick, thanks for coming on. This was
me,
a really good chat. And is there anything you want to plug?
What do I want to plug? Oh, yeah.
New single?
New single. You're so right. You've got me covered, mate. New single, Beautiful and Boring, which is out now. And there'll be some more new music coming.
You working on an album?
I'm not working on an album, but I have a body of work coming out, and I want to work on an album, but that's not a thing. So maybe at some point soon. But
cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Nice
I really
one.
appreciate it.
Mate, thanks for having me, dude.
Awesome,
really,
man.
really
Thank you.
enjoyed that.
Thank you.